So for this assignment, we'll be working with color. And there's two assignments that are related to color. And the first one is about pulling palettes from photographs. This is a really common technique that we sometimes use in design. Sometimes when we're designing, we want to actually have a palette that comes from a photograph. Sometimes there's a certain material or a certain culture or a certain place that we want to draw color from. And oftentimes using this technique will help us build colors that will be in harmony with the content or the photography that's in our piece. So for this project, there are specific photos that you need to find. Those are in the assignment sheet, but it's red, pink, orange, yellow, blue, green, purple, one neutral, so beige, gray, or taupe, and then white and black. So you're looking for one of each of those. So really the first step of this is finding the images. So you can take these photos yourself, although it might be better if you just look for them on the internet. So there's a couple different strategies you can take for finding those images. So if I bring up Google, one thing that I could do is just search for images that I know are going to be dominantly one color. So maybe I search for oranges, the fruit. If I'm looking for an orange, I know that these are going to be images that are going to be mostly orange. Because what's really important on this assignment is when your instructor is grading this, there should be no doubt in their mind what color you're showing. You want photos like this, where the entire photo is mostly all orange. This is borderline. This has pink and yellow and green. Although maybe it would work, but this definitely wouldn't work. I mean, maybe it's obvious because here the name of the color is also the name of the fruit, but it should be very, very obvious. You're looking for photographs that are all dominantly one color. So that can be one strategy. You can search for things that you know are a color. This would be one that definitely wouldn't work. As an instructor, I'd be wondering, is this green or is this orange? The other strategy you can take is to search for things and use Google's image search functionality to find something that is that color. So maybe I type in nature. Then if I come in here to tools, there's this color menu, and I can actually select what color I want. So maybe I'm looking for an all blue nature image. And sometimes this will work. Sometimes you have to really search through and find one. You know, a lot of these are a little bit too mixed in terms of their value. But sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes it works out. Let's try orange. So here's some great ones, like the fall foliage. These are awesome. You know, a lot of these would work. This is a great example of one where it's so obvious to me that this is all orange. So what you can do is you can right click on these and click Save Image As and save it somewhere on your computer where you can find it. It doesn't really matter if you own the rights to the images for this assignment. This is just something you'll be turning into the learning management system for your instructor. You're never going to be publishing this anywhere, so no need to worry about if you own the rights to the image in this particular case. So don't worry and just save any images that you find. Again, the key is that you hit the different colors that are on the assignment sheet and that they are dominantly a color. It should be very obvious what color it is because we're really going to look at pulling palettes from images that look like they're all one color, and we're going to quickly realize that there's a lot of different colors in there. So those are two strategies for finding images. You're welcome to use your own images as well, as long as, again, they have to be dominantly all one color. So once we have all of those images, you're going to open the InDesign template that's on the learning management system for you. This is what it looks like. This week we're working in InDesign, which is a little bit different, although a lot of the functionality is similar. To start, I'm going to reset the workspace. I showed how to do this before in Adobe Illustrator, but I also want to show you how to do it in InDesign so that my screen looks the way that yours does. So I'm going to click on Essentials Classic. That's the workspace I want to use. I'm also going to come up here to Window and I'm going to reset Essentials Classic just so it's back to normal and how it should be as the default. You'll notice there's only 2 pages in this file. Obviously, we're creating more than 2 pages, but there's a page with a vertical image and a page with a horizontal image. So depending on the orientation of the photos that you find will determine which pages you need to duplicate. So first off, there's this Pages palette over here. This is a really powerful palette in InDesign. It's going to show you those 2 pages. And then what you can do is you can actually click and hold the page and then hold down Option, and it's going to create a little plus that you see. And it's going to duplicate that page. So sometimes that can be really useful. Once you find the images that you need, all of them, you can look at how many are horizontal, how many are vertical, and then you can duplicate the correct number of each one so that in the end you have the right number of pages. But obviously, you could do this as you go along as well, but that's the way that you're going to create additional pages without having to do a lot of copying and pasting. The other thing that we want to do is make sure that we save this file. So I'm going to come up here to a save as, and I'm going to go ahead and put my name at the beginning of the file so that I have it saved, and if I need to go back to the original template, I can. So that explains how the pages palette work and how you will create more of the pages, but let's get into how do we actually get the photographs into this file. So there's a couple ways to do this. One way is to come to File, Place, and actually navigate to where the file lives. So you can find the file that you're looking for. You can actually navigate and put it in the file itself. So when you do that, you'll notice that now I have the photo. It's very small, and it sort of is in what we sometimes call like a content loader. And what I can do is I can click anywhere and put this photo in there. Or what I can do is I can actually hover over these boxes that have been created for me already. It's hard to see, but you'll notice when I do that, the way it looks changes. Right now, there's a little bit of a dotted line around the upper left-hand corner of the photo. But when I hover over these boxes, that line goes away and there's sort of brackets around that little icon of an image. That's going to allow me to place it inside of this box, which kind of makes this assignment go a little bit quicker. Then what I can do is use the direct selection tool, which is right here. And that's actually going to allow me to click inside and move the photo. InDesign works in a frame within a frame concept. So there's a frame here which I can select with the selection tool, which allows me to actually move the box around. But I don't want to do that. What I want to do is move what we can see inside of that box. So it's almost like a window. And by using the direct selection, I can move the photo inside and actually determine what we see through that window. I can also come to the corner and I can scale this image if I need to for some reason. So that can be another useful way to make sure that you're seeing the part of the photograph that you want us to see. This can also be a strategy. Maybe you find an image and most of it is orange, but there's a little area at the top that's green. Well, maybe you want to crop that out by making it bigger and removing that portion so that all we see is the orange part of the photo. So that's the process of loading this in. It's the exact same way for the vertical images as well. So that's the same idea. It's just that it's a vertical orientation. Another way that you can do this is you can also load them directly from your desktop. So another strategy you could take is to open a window from your computer itself. So it doesn't have to be your desktop, but here I have two photos and I can select both of them by holding down Shift, or you can select both and you can pull them in and just drag them into the window. And it's going to create the same thing. Now I have that same content loader again that I can push into these boxes themselves or load onto the page. So that's a good way to load photos into InDesign as well. So once you have those photos loaded and they're sized how you want them, the next step is to start creating palettes. So I can zoom in here, same as Illustrator. There's the magnifying glass here. There's also the Command plus and minus. Same with the hand tool as well in Illustrator. You saw me doing that. Same functionality exists there as well. But I'm going to zoom in a little bit here to look at this photo. So this photo is dominantly green. But what we're going to find through this process is that there are a lot of other colors in here other than green. And we can create a pretty interesting diverse palette even though the photo looks one color. So what I want to do is use the Eyedropper tool. If I click and hold on this, I can get to the original Eyedropper tool, which is what I want. There's also this color theme tool, which can be useful. It kind of does the assignment for you. It actually loads these different colors. So if you want to use this, you're more than welcome to do that as well. But you'll see how it looks at the photo and it finds diverse colors, although sometimes it doesn't quite work. Like these two are too close in value. We want to create colors that are drastically different, but you could always, try to create a new palette. You could look at other ones that are in there and maybe find one that's a little bit more different, which might work for you and ultimately allow this to work. But that's one way to create a palette. But the other way that I want to show is using the traditional Eyedropper tool, which lives under here. And that's a little bit different. What I can do is I can click on different areas of the photo, and when I click, you'll see that the eyedropper almost sucks up ink. Now it's full. The inside has a little bit of black fillings to tell me that something's in there. And then I can come down here and fill it in to one of these bars. Then the cool thing is if I hold down Option, you'll notice it'll toggle back to being empty again. So I can empty it out and look for another part of the photo that I want to take up instead. And suddenly I'm going to be able to start creating a palette that's really unique in my file. Another thing to be careful of is to, again, not to make sure that you have colors that are too similar, but also you want to be wary to make sure that there's not a stroke on the swatches themselves. So very similar to Illustrator, if that starts happening, you can come in here and select the stroke. And then in this case, we need to go to the swatches palette and select none so that there isn't a stroke on the outside. We really just want the color itself. Another interesting thing about InDesign is if you ever want to see what this will actually look like, you can press W. It'll actually do a preview mode where you can see everything at the resolution that it will actually be at, and also get rid of all of the blue lines and margin lines that can sometimes be a little bit distracting when you're working in this file. So once you get a palette that you like and you think it's really diverse and it's successful, you can move on to the next image and go through that same process for all of the images that you pull. And in the end, you'll have all of these unique palettes that are pulled from photographs that are dominantly one color. So in the end, you should end up with 10 pages or 10 compositions in total. And it doesn't matter how many of them are horizontal or vertical. Do whatever works best for the photos you find and want to use, as long as those photos are dominantly one color and you're able to create unique palettes of 5 different shades or tints of that color in the document. So the other thing I wanted to show quickly, although it's not a part of this assignment, is a little bit of how powerful color can be in InDesign. So what I'm going to do is I have a palette here that I've created with different shades of green. And you'll notice in the swatches palette that I opened up, there's already colors that are in here. It will always load with cyan, magenta, yellow, red, green, and blue, which we talked about in the lecture. These are foundational colors. It's why they're there. But in this case, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to go to select all unused. And I'm going to delete all those colors because I don't really want them in here. I'm also going to delete the cyan. I don't know why it didn't delete it. And this is one powerful thing that happens in InDesign. When I delete a swatch that is being used anywhere in the document, it says, hey, you're getting rid of that swatch. What do you want me to replace it with? So in this case, I'm just going to replace it with none, but you could also replace it with black. That's another thing that you could do, but I don't think I'm using this color, so I want to go ahead and just make everything none. What's really neat though is then I can create swatches. If I select one of these colors and I have this in front, I can come over here and press the plus sign. And it's going to create a new swatch. So that's really nice. I can do that with a couple of these colors. And I start ending up with swatches over here that I can use. And then I can really easily color things and remember the colors that I'm using because they exist within this document and they've been created as swatches. Another useful tool here is you can also come in and double click on this and you can see the breakdown of the color, which is something we'll get to in a minute. It's also shown over here. My software is defaulting to naming the color with the CMYK breakdown, but you can also change it to all the different color modes that exist. So you can change it to RGB if you're working on screen. You can go to CMYK if that's what you're doing. Another thing I love about InDesign is if you have a color over here and I come in and I start changing the color, you'll notice that it will change it in the document. And imagine if you have a large document with lots and lots of colors and you want to change one color everywhere, this can be a really handy way. But if you didn't make a swatch, you wouldn't be able to see that color changing and it wouldn't change globally throughout the whole document. And then again, another useful thing like I talked about is you can delete a swatch and you'll notice that it'll allow you to select what you want it to be replaced with. So maybe that's something that you're really looking to do. You want to remove a color and replace it with another color. Well, if you create a new swatch and delete the swatch that you want to get rid of, it's a really quick way to change the color in the entire document. So the last thing that you need to do is on one swatch in the entire document, so not per color, just one swatch that you like the best, we're going to label with the RGB and the CMYK breakdown. That's also the color that you will use for part 2. So choose wisely, choose a color that you're interested in. Part 2 is about looking for associations with colors. So it's going to involve some research and also looking in the textbook to get some information about that color. I'm going to go ahead and select this one. I'm just going to zoom in here and I'm going to look at what are the breakdowns for this color. So if I come in and I double click on it, you'll see that I get the CMYK breakdown, although that's already listed here. We can round these up or down. That's great. They don't have to be these decimal driven numbers. So 68, 43, 136. Again, it's here for me, although you could easily write that down. I'm going to go to the type tool and I'm going to create a text box. I want this to be on top of this color, so you'll notice I sort of made the text box similar to the size of that shape. You don't want to click on top of this, or actually it's going to write in that box. I want an additional box, or else it's going to be difficult to see the words and they're going to go to the edge. If you ever do that, you can always undo it, but you'll notice if I do this, it's going to type in a strange way that I don't want. So I want to actually create a text box outside of it. And that's just done again by clicking and dragging. Go to the text tool, click and drag. I'm making one that's approximately the size of that shape so it'll fit nicely on top. And then I can say CMYK, and then I'll do 68, 43, 100, 36. You can always change the typeface here. So up here, you'll see the typefaces that you can work with. You can also change the size in case it's not fitting how you want it to. So you're welcome to make any of those changes that you want. Then I'm going to go ahead and put some returns in and do RGB. And I'm going to look up that RGB value. So I'm going to go back to the selection tool, click out of this box, and then double click here and change this to RGB. Click OK. Nice thing is it's showing it there for me again. So I can just come in and say 73, 90, 41. Then all I need to do is put this on top of this box so that I know that that's the one I've labeled, so your instructor can see that. And then again, that'll give you the values that you need as you move into part 2, because this is now the color that you will be using for part 2. So just to reiterate, you do not need to label one swatch per color. It's just one swatch in all of the pages that you create in this document. So you'll pick one color that you're working with, whether that's red, orange, yellow, blue. Pick one swatch from that color, and that'll be the color that you'll use for part 2. If the color is really dark, it might also be useful to make this white. So you could also change the color of the text to be white if that makes it easier to read. So that's one way to do it. Obviously, you could also just change it over here in the swatches palette as well. So hopefully that helps you work on part 1 of color. It's a fun assignment. Once you find those images, you can plug them into InDesign and then create all of these swatches from those photographs. Once you've completed this, you'll want to then create a PDF. So obviously you'll want to save along the way so you don't lose anything. Another thing to remember is that InDesign works in an interesting way where the links are listed here. So you don't want to move the photos once you download them. Or if you do, you'll need to relink these. You'll see a little question mark appear here. And if that happens for you, it means that the file moved or was deleted and InDesign can't find it anymore. It doesn't actually live inside of this file the way it would in Adobe Illustrator. It's actually a linked file. So I'll show you quickly what might happen if we did that. If I come in here and I delete this photo, you'll see that InDesign very quickly, if I go to the links palette, will tell me, wait, what's going on? Where'd that go? So if I go ahead and I undelete it, you'll notice that then I come to the link palette and it's okay. If that ever happens, if you move it for some reason and you can't find it, you can always come in here and go to relink and you can navigate to where that file lived. Or you could always move the file back to where it was and it will find it. Hopefully this doesn't happen to you. If you do this assignment quickly in one sitting, which is very easy to do, you shouldn't have a problem. But if you do have a problem, that's how to solve those linking issues. But once all that's ready to go, again, you want to make that PDF. So hopefully you've saved the file. Then we'll go to File. And in this case, we're going to go to Export. It's a little bit different. We can't do the Save As like we did in Adobe Illustrator. So we're going to actually go to Export and say that we want to create a PDF for print. We're going to say that we're going to use the InDesign document name, and I'm going to go ahead and save it on my desktop, although you can navigate around your computer to save it where it works best for you. Click Save, and then we'll get to this menu where we can make some changes. In this case, since this is not something we're ever going to print, it's just being uploaded to the learning management system for grading, you want to select smallest file size. That's really going to be the best for this because it's going to create a file that is small but still high quality to be viewed on a screen. So make sure you select that. But the rest of it you're not going to want to change. We're going to want all of the pages here. We're going to not want to change any of the compression. But I'll go through each of these windows just so you can see them and make sure that yours is the same. Although again, I'm really just using the default, which is just fine, and that's really what we want. I'm gonna go ahead and click export. There's an error message that's come up here about the transparency space. I'm not really gonna worry about that, so we can just click OK if that comes up for you. And then now in the background, it's gonna create that PDF file. Now if I go and navigate, I'll find that PDF file where I saved it, open it up in Acrobat. Obviously, you'll see that some of these are not done because I didn't finish all of them, but there are the ones that I completed, and those are ready to go. And then this entire file, once it's done and it looks correct, can be uploaded for grading. So I hope that helps you as you work with the software. I know this time we're working with InDesign, which can be a little bit different. Your instructor is always there to answer any questions that you might have. And I wish you the best of luck with this color assignment, and I hope you have fun with it.